ENTP, INTJ, ESFP, ISFJ, wait. Okay, this is ISTJ, ENTP, INFJ, ESTP. Okay, what's next? ENFJ, INFP, ESTJ, ISTP. Okay, and then we have this one, INTP, ESFJ, ISFP, ENTJ. Then that's all the 16 personality types in CPT. So, hello everybody, this is Rita the Shadow. Welcome. So I thought, a long time no see, by the way. So last time before the break, I wanted to do CPT explanation series. So I thought, what better way to explain than to show, right? So as you can see, in CPT, the cognitive functions are not separated into introverted versus extroverted, and it is understood in CPT that they are the same function. And introversion and extroversion in this sense is only the difference of different states. So like this, for example, when you're dipping down into introversion, you are changing the state from TE to TI, but it's still the same function, and yeah, they serve the same purpose. And well, I guess the purpose depends, but anyways, without going too deep into the nitty-gritty, on the top level, they're the same function. And so going down is called dipping, and going this way is called dipping as well. But going this way is going down is impression dip, and going up is expression dip. And going, how should I say this? Going from left to right, and so the function doesn't go here, but what happens is when you dipping from left to right, actually this one goes down and this one goes up. So in effect, it's to you, it's like you are changing from thinking to feeling and sensing to intuition, or vice versa. So that this is called extension dip, because it's like you are extending your current function into the other side. And what is the other side? The other side is convergent versus divergent. So this is another important concept that we will come back to, but last thing before we go there is the pink line here. These are the axis line. So if you have any knowledge of cognitive functions, I think you know by now, thinking and feeling is on an axis, and sensing and intuition is on an axis. So, and also, because they're on the axis, that means when thinking goes down, the feeling goes up. So as you're thinking deep down into introversion, your feeling goes up into extroversion. And conversely, if your thinking is in the extroverted state, then your feeling goes down into introverted state. And the same goes for sensing and intuition. When the sensing is down, intuition is up. Or if the intuition is down, then the sensing is up. So that's pretty much the axis. So now you know everything below here, and that only left convergent versus divergent. So convergent is the area that that you take more action with, and it's like the way that you tend to approach things. And divergent is more like a code that you go by, a rule that you prefer to follow, that is called the divergent functions. So in case of let me see here. In case of ENTP, ENFP, this means that the way that they prefer to do things is with intuition and extroverted intuition and extroverted thinking. So if you have trouble reading like this, I can write it as an NeTe. And this one is naturally SIFI. So that means this is the method, and this is the rule that you go by. So, and what this exactly means, we will come back to it later. But so now you know that together with a dominant function and an auxiliary function, together they perform a duty. So this one, the duty they perform is to observe the external world with a wide and unspecific scope, and then try to do something with them using TE. And the rule they go by is, mainly both based on the past. Like they draw ideas from their memories and past experience, and then they try to rationalize it and see how they feel about this. And if it doesn't feel good, then they will try to change it with this. And if they feel good, then they keep doing more. So this is what CPT is on the very basic level. So now maybe we go a bit deeper into the theory. So as we discussed earlier, the way that, so any typology theory tries to answer the question like how the mind works, right? Like, how do we operate as a person? And in the world of Jungian, and that includes CPT, we use cognitive functions, except everybody have different views of what the cognitive functions represent. But in CPT, they have a very specific, but I don't know how to explain this. I will think about it and come back to it later, maybe. So, but for now, as you can see, like, the reality is divided into the external reality and internal reality. And so when so imagine if you can only pick one type, right? So of course that is not the case. At least I don't believe that anymore. Like, I believe we have all 16 types within us, and all the types are actually just, it's like a preferred network state that we prefer to be in. But actually everybody jump from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, and there are 16 states that we can jump in between. So maybe something like this. So that's why it is a network, and this is not even all the lines in the network. Well, if you see in cognitive alchemy, there are 7 lines connected to the cognitive circle. Let me see if I can find it. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 lines connected to each circle. So, and each circle is a gateway, and each gateway connected to a network. So there are 7 ways to connect to a network, at least in this model. minimum, but maybe the mind doesn't, it's not like a precise science machine. Maybe it's like a, the model of the atom. There are 6 lines, but actually electrons, they don't travel on this path only. They can be anywhere. But so this is just a visual representation. So you can consider the countive circle just a visual presentation as well. And same as this one, it's just a visual presentation. Your mind is not a machine. But anyway, come back to this. So if you can only pick one, then what would you do, right? So the extroverted would pick one area that they pay more attention to. So I write pick responsibility here. So it's action versus observation. So in the other words, convergent versus divergent. So if you pick responsible for the external reality, then it makes you an extrovert because you have an convergent extroverted functions. So these 4. And so naturally, the introverts would pick the opposite. So they prioritize the internal reality to be responsible for over the external one. And the extroverts are observant of their inner world, and the introverts are observant of the outer world. So that is if you have only one type or one network. So that means it's unbalanced, right? But fortunately, there's a thing called network travel, or if you come from CFJ or otherwise familiar with the 4 sides of the mind model, then it's called traveling into a different side of mind, right? So pretty much the same thing. So then you change from responsible for the external world to responsible for the internal world. But anyways, so that is the next step. So I lost my train of thought. So yeah, anyway, so you pick this one first. Okay, let's say you pick the external one, and then the next you will pick which one you prioritize, So within the extroverts, some prioritize sensing, extroverted sensing, some prioritize the intuition aspect of the perception, right? And for the judging, some people prioritize thinking side, and some people prioritize the emotional side, the humanistic and the social side. So that is what this means, like picking priority. So if you pick NE and TE, then that makes you an ENFP, as discussed before. But you maybe you are wondering, how come ENFP? Well, it's because CPT look at the functions in a pair, and the pair must have the same orientation, that is extroverted versus introversion. So you know how ENFP is NEFI PESI? So that means it's actually these two versus these two, and it's not following the MBTI order, so it's actually this one first, then this one, and then so this one is not under TE, by the way. They are equals. I mean equal in a sense, like because NE and SI is on an axis, so that means in CPT they are not called the inferior function, they are called the oppositional function because they are the opposite to your dominant function, and that makes them equal to the dominant actually, and except because you focus on the dominant more, then as a consequence they become overlooked. But in terms of mentally speaking, they are equal, and that means they are the how do you say that? They are the pilot, whereas so NE and SI, so the first one and the last one are the driver, and these two in the middle, they are like the map reader, or if you like the airplane, you know, then it's the pilot versus co-pilot. So yeah, anyways, I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but just bear with me. So oh yeah, so there it is. So as you can see, this is an example for INFP, and the dominant is the boss, right? And the agency is the underling, and the underling supports the boss. In the same way, the so the parent function in CPT is called the authority function. In the same way, the authority function supports the opposition function. And you can think of it as like a positive charge versus a negative charge. So the dominant function has a positive charge and the authority function is a negative charge. And the agency is double positive and the oppositional function is double negative. But it doesn't mean that they are like they are treated negatively if you although they can be, like usually they are a bit more serious, and this side is a bit more flexible because they are being acted upon, and this side is a bit more serious and vigilant. So it means that INFP have a vigilant NE and TE. In particular, TE is the boss, so it's actually TE and E, and a more flexible FISI, and FI is also flexible, whereas SI is more hyper. So what's hyper mean? Hyper means like they don't like to change orientation. So the flexible one can go up and down as needed. So that means FI can dip into FE quite easily. Or if you are an FE dominant, then you can dip down into FI quite easily. So it means dominant and authoritative function are somewhat more flexible compared to this one and this one. So you can see why they are the blind spot or the demon functions, right? Because this one is hyper, so it means that the reverse orientation is being overlooked. And same as this one, because TE is hyper, it doesn't like to go to TI as much. So that is the brief overview of CPT. There are more to say, but I'm not sure if going into too deep is a good idea. But yeah, so I guess the next thing, or it has already been discussed, but maybe this is more clear. So the functions are not fixed, they can move, and that is called dipping or rotation. And dipping is divided into orientation dip or extension dip, and orientation dip is often called impression or expression dip. So if you go from introverted to extroverted, it's expression dip, and if you go from extroverted to introverted, it's impression dip. And extension dip is dipping from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. So introverted to sensing or thinking to feeling, vice versa. And rotation is rotation of axes. So from one end to the other, NI to SC or SC to NI, or NE and SI, or TE and FI. There are 4 different axes. Sorry. 4 different axes. Two for each. Two for perceiving and 2 for judging functions. And how do you determine someone is introverted or extroverted? So it's not just about whether they like talking or not in the perspective of CPT. Cognitively speaking, extroverted is more reactive, at least in this theory, and introverted is more proactive. And before you jump into conclusion, it means that reactive means acquiring skills that can be applied to developing situations. So because they are, as we mentioned before, they are taking responsibility, or not necessarily responsibility, but more motivated to take action on the external environment. So they are always, watching, not only watching, but reacting. Actually, maybe yeah. So they are a little bit watching, but mostly taking actions in the external environment. So that means the way that extroverted do things is that they try to develop a skill set that they can react to situations, or what they can do to alter the surrounding to make it fit themselves. So they observe what they want, or how they are feeling, or how they are thinking, and then try to alter the external environment to suit their needs. And introverted is the opposite. So they are proactive, cognitively speaking. So they are trying to formulate an understanding in anticipation of having to utilize it in the real world. And that means that, there's a lot of preemptive planning involved, or a way to make self fit the world. So they are the opposite. They observe the surrounding and try to change themselves to make it fit. So yeah. So if they are introverted thinker, then they will adopt, depends on what they see. NFJ, for example, they will try to observe social nuances and then try to reflect and adapt their thinking to deal with the situation. Whereas ENFP may be observing how they are feeling and then try to change the surrounding role, or acting on an external medium, like if they feel like dancing, they go to the dance floor and go dance. So they change their surrounding by observing their feeling. So of course everybody do a little bit of both. So it's not like if you do one thing you can't do the other. It's more about which one you tend to do more over the other. So it's not as easy as it seems. That's why. And the next part is the dichotomies, I guess. So as we discussed before, like conversion and diversion, you can think of it as like a battery. And conversion, you can also call it the ego complex, because it is the realm of your ego feeling responsible for. And diversion is called alter ego complex, because the ego doesn't think doesn't think that it's something they can do about, like they just have to deal with it. So it's like the environmental factor, so it's like outside of the ego, in the sense of taking actions. So that's conversion and diversion, and there are different elements. So the four kinds of cognitive functions, sensing and intuition, or SNN, are part of the experiential, or in other system is known as the perceiving functions, right? And sorry, talking too much. And thinking and feeling, T and F, WTF, and no, sorry, T and F is called the rational functions or the judging side. And the convergent and divergent is also called the attitudes. So as we discussed before, like convergent is usually more positive and divergent is slightly more negative, or not in a sense of not in a sense of happy or sad, more like chill versus no chill. So yeah, relax versus uptight, more like maybe. So this is egoic, and this is alter ego, and this is interaction and observation. This is mobility, staticity, fluidity, and immobile. So they are just different words to describe the general vibe of the attitude. And so the orientation is basically just the introversion versus extroversion dichotomy again. And introversion is naturally introspection, and this one exploration is pretty self-explanatory here. Maybe I just bring attention to imagining versus research. So usually speaking, introverted functions are more in charge of the imagination, and extroverted functions are more in charge of research. So yeah, I think I spent enough time over there. So maybe that's all for today without making the video too long. Yeah, so maybe next time we talk about this. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.